Ooh la la! What's sauce for the goose is now sauce for the gander. Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay. Now, did I not say this a couple of weeks ago? Remember when the Kuhner man kept saying, we've got Leticia James, New York State Attorney General, dead to rights on mortgage fraud, on tax fraud, on federal crimes. And I kept saying, what are they waiting for? What are they waiting for? Well, yesterday they finally dropped the hammer. Now, for those of you who, just may have been you're suffering a little bit of Bidenitis, and your memory may be going. Leticia James is really the architect, at least in the state of New York, of the lawfare that was conducted against Trump, both on the civil front. If you remember, she went after him for allegedly overinflating his property values. And of course, with the Alvin Bragg case, where they went after him on bookkeeping errors. Okay, fundamentally, that's what the whole thing was about. Now, she's the one that vowed that she was going to put Trump in jail. She campaigned on putting Trump in jail. And she had no specific crimes. There was no specific evidence. There was nothing there. She just generally, broadly said, I'll get him. I don't know what I'll get him on. Show me the man, and I'll show you the crime. But I'll get him. Just elect me, and I'm going to move heaven and earth, and eventually we'll manufacture a case against him, but we're going to get him. Well, now it's karma, baby. The Justice Department now announced yesterday that they have received a criminal referral from the Federal Housing Finance Agency. And in particular, this is the man that I think is the hero of the hour. He is the director of the Federal Housing Finance Agency, William Pult. He goes by Bill. Bill Pult, Pulte. He is the one who took it upon himself to investigate Leticia James, to look into all of her mortgage applications, look at all of her financial background, all of her schemes. And you know what he found? Crime after crime after crime after crime. And he put together a very detailed, iron-tight case. We're talking about every I is dotted, every T is crossed. And he wrote the letter to Pam Bondi. And basically now he has handed Leticia James over to Pam Bondi and the Department of Justice on a silver platter. On a silver platter. And my friends, I'm going to get to the specifics in just a few seconds. But let me tell you what I find most... I don't know why I'm shocked. I really am. Maybe at this point I shouldn't be shocked. But I guess I still am. I don't know. What I find most shocking, I knew she was out to get him. I get that. And I knew that she was out to fabricate and manufacture crimes against him. The lawfare against Trump. The weaponization of the legal system to get Trump. I get all of that. But this is what's incredible. Everything she accused Trump of, she's guilty of. She overinflated her properties. She engaged in financial fraud. She literally lied, false bookkeeping. Fraudulent financial statements. I could go on and on. Everything that she alleged against Trump, she did. She's been caught red-handed. You can't make this up. Now, it's not just that she did it. It's how transparent and blatant it is. This is an open and shut case. Now, what is also incredible, by her own standards, remember, this is her standard now. By her own standard, she's now going to go to jail. If you apply the Leticia James standard to Leticia James, she's finished. Because what she went after Trump for is she said, well, if there are any discrepancies in your bookkeeping, if there are any discrepancies in your financial filings or your financial statements, it doesn't matter if you didn't know about it. It doesn't matter if your lawyers were dealing with it, i.e. a third party. You are responsible to go through every single piece of paper, every line, item by item by item by item. So now she can't blame her lawyers. She can't blame a third party. By her own standard, she's going down. And remember her infamous words. These words now will haunt her all the way into prison, all the way behind bars. Roll cut 23. Remember what she said going into the trial against Trump? Roll cut 23. Mike.
My message is simple. No matter how powerful you are, no matter how much money you think you may have, no one is above the law. And it is my responsibility and my duty and my job to enforce it. The law is both powerful and fragile. And today in court, we will prove our case. I thank you all for being here. And again, justice will prevail. Thank you.
Okay, well, justice is going to prevail now. No one is above the law, Tish James. Your words. Well, here it comes. So here is now what they have found. Get ready for this. They're going to go after her, at least on the first round, initially on mortgage fraud. I'm telling you it's going to lead to tax fraud. And you'll see why in 2 minutes. But they're going to go after her on mortgage fraud, and that's enough to put her behind bars. But once you go into the mortgage fraud, it then opens up tax fraud. So here is now what they have found. Number one, she has multiple properties, both in Virginia and in Brooklyn. Remember now, she is the state attorney general. So by law, her primary residence must be in New York. Just makes sense, right? No. Leticia James, in order to get a very favorable mortgage, very favorable lending terms, put down on her application for a property in Norfolk, Virginia, that is her primary residence. That is her primary residence, not the one in New York. Fraud number one. Number two, on that Virginia property, she deliberately overinflated the value of the property and the value of the mortgage. By the way, why did she put that down as her principal property? She put it down as her principal property because you get a much better loan term. So she's putting tens and tens of thousands of dollars in her pocket. But she claimed she's got a $500,000 mortgage that she received on a house that's only worth $150,000. You want to talk about overinflating assets? So she's committed fraud already in Virginia. But it gets even worse. She's got an apartment building in Brooklyn, which is a 5-unit building, which in New York, by the way, is considered now a commercial building. So you're taxed at a higher level, and your the ability to get loans is much higher and stricter. Now, and it's officially recognized in New York papers as a 5-unit building. On mortgage application after mortgage application after mortgage application, she put it down 4 units. 4 units in order to get a more favorable loan again. She committed fraud. But it gets even worse. She's not claiming any rent from those 4 units. Yet there are people living there who are paying her rent. She's hiding income. She hasn't paid taxes on all of the income that she received from her Brooklyn property and from her Norfolk, Virginia property. So we're not just talking about mortgage fraud. We're also talking about tax fraud. And then this begs the ultimate question. How does a woman who's been a public employee, that's what she's been on a government salary her whole career, how the hell can she afford building after building, property after property? And on 2 of her loan applications, remember, she's single. She's never been married, ever. She put down her father as her husband in order to get a better mortgage rate and a better loan. She has lied. She's committed fraud. She's going to jail, baby. Okay, what comes around goes around. Or as they say, karma's a bee, baby. 620 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, let me ask all of you. 617-266-6868. Do you think Leticia James, A, is guilty? And more importantly, now that there's a criminal referral from now handed over to Pam Bondi and the Department of Justice, will Pam Bondi prosecute Leticia James? And do you think now she will go to jail? And should Leticia James go to jail? I want to play a cut. Again, this was when she was going after Donald Trump in court. This is what she famously said about Trump right after the ruling by Judge Enron. Remember that whack job over whether Trump had overinflated the value of his properties? And they went after him for $450 million. Do you remember that? Well, listen, this was Leticia James then crowing in that civil case. Roll cut 21A, Mike.
Today we prove that no one is above the law. For years, Donald Trump engaged in deceptive business practices and tremendous fraud. Donald Trump falsely, knowingly, inflated his net worth by billions of dollars to unjustly enrich himself, his family, and to cheat the system.
I mean, that's her. I mean, that's what's incredible. That's her. Now, I just want this to settle in for everybody. She's never been married. Okay. She's been single her whole life. That's her business. It's fine. The point being, she applied not once, but twice and got very favorable terms. I don't know exactly why, but apparently for some loans that she applied for, if you're married, you get a much better term. Much better term. So she put down her father. It's right there in black and white as her husband. So she falsely claimed she was married. Fraud number. That's a false statement. Fraud. But who did she put down? Her old man. And claimed her father was her husband. She has no husband, but she claimed the father was the husband. Now, so that's a false statement. Now, do you either have 4 units in your Brooklyn apartment building or you don't? It's really, it's cut and dried. And the problem is, it's 5. It's 5. It's 5 units. The New York Residential Authority has it down as 5 units. The building inspectors have it down as 5 units. Everybody has it down as 5 units because it's got 5 units. So she falsely claimed again and again and again in application after application, in loan after loan. And remember, 4 units puts a lot more money in her pocket than 5 units. That's why she put down 4. She kept putting it down over and over again, 4 units. Now, this is just on the mortgage fraud. This is why I'm telling you they've got her dead to rights on tax fraud. Because in those 5 units, she's got people living there. They're paying her rent. No financial document that she has disclosed that she's been accepting rent money. This has been going on for 20 years. 20 years, this woman has been pocketing rental money, and she's never declared a single penny. We're talking about hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. She's not paying her freaking taxes. This is all undeclared income. So they've got her there. Then, this is the one, I can't believe how, that's stupid. Everything I've just told you is unbelievably stupid. But the one you want to talk about super stupid, colossally stupid, even by Democrat standards, stupid. You are the New York State Attorney General. You are required by law. It's not some kind of an ethical thing. It's literally a legal requirement. You must have your primary residence in the state of New York. Of course. Of course. It's just common sense. She's so greedy. She got a property, another rental property, by the way, in Norfolk, Virginia. But because she's got multiple homes, she deals with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, who've been giving her outstanding terms for, God knows how many years. They said, you don't understand. You put this down as a secondary property or a rental property. I don't think we can give you the loan. Well, what if I put it down as my primary residence? Well, if you put it down as your primary residence, well, yeah, we can then give you the loan and you can get the property and make as much money off of it as you want. Well, put it down as my primary residence. So either it's your primary residence or it isn't. It's on paper. There's no getting around this. So she's broken laws. She's engaged in naked mortgage fraud. And by the way, that property's not sitting idle. It's not like a beach property or a summer property. She's got people living there paying her rent. Undeclared. Now, all Pam Bondi has to do now is get a good prosecutor. And it's not even follow the crumbs. It's literally just read the paperwork, show it in front of a judge. She's guilty.
My message is simple. No matter how powerful you are, no matter how much money you think you may have, no one is above the law. And it is my responsibility and my duty and my job to enforce it. The law is both powerful and fragile. And today in court, we will prove our case. I thank you all for being here. And again, justice will prevail. Thank you.
You know what? Tish, I agree with you. No, I agree with you. Hell is just frozen over. I agree with Leticia James. I do. No one is above the law. And justice shall prevail. Oh, those words are going to haunt her. I'm telling you. Okay, 6:32 on the great WRKO. We got a couple more lines open if you want to jump on. 617-266-6868. What do you make now of this stunning criminal referral? Apparently, James did not see it coming. I can't believe it, but she didn't. That's how arrogant she is. That's how narcissistic she is. She literally thought she was above the law, that none of this would catch up to her. None. So apparently now she's avoiding reporters. I'm not kidding. She's pretending to be talking on the phone when she's not on the phone. She is running from the media. She used to run to the media. Now she's running from the media. And she's got a big problem. She can't get out of this one. If Pam Bondi wants to go after her, then Leticia James is going to go to prison, and she's going to go to prison for a long time. Now, one question that I want to throw to the audience. How did she get all this money? I mean, I understand she's been running these rental properties, off the books and getting these fake fraudulent loans to get these rental properties, and she's collecting the rent and not paying taxes. But where did she get the money to buy these properties in the first place? I mean, everybody is commenting now how many properties she has. I mean, yes, you're getting loans, yes, but still, you got to have some income to back up these loans. This is a woman who's on a government salary, and it's state, it's not federal. So, it's not like she's even making hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. Let's say $200,000 a year. She's not. She's making, what is it? 80, 90, 100,000. I mean, if that for most of her career. So how could she afford property after property after property? See, this is why I think the more you look into this, it's going to get worse and worse and worse. Now, many of you, Dave in our Western PA constitutionalist correspondent, messaged me and said, Jeff, as far as Leticia James is concerned, what comes around goes around. And mark my words, Jeff, she will cry racism and play the victim. She's already starting to do that. She's already doing the whole, it's because of my race. They're after me. It's racism, which is not true. Or this is payback by Trump because I went after him. Well, Bill Pult came out. He's the director of the Federal Housing Finance Agency, and said, no, I'm telling you, Pam Bondi just heard about this right now. I did this investigation on my own. Nothing to do with the president, nothing to do with Pam Bondi. We've been looking into her now for a long time because her fraudulent behavior is so flagrant. It's so obvious. It's red flag after red flag after red flag. This is from 781. By the way, you can text the Kuhner Man, 70470, 70470. Jeff, as one that DJs many weddings a year, doing Leticia James's wedding would have been a breeze. The couple's first dance and the father-daughter dance could have been done at the same time. Who puts down their father as their husband? And you're not married and never been married. Who does that to get a loan, for a more, and she did it twice, not once. She did it twice. No, but Trump is the swindler. Trump is the swindler, according to her. All right. One more. And then I want to go to right to the phone lines. This is from Larry. Jeff, do you recall when Leticia James announced her quest to be New York State Attorney General? It had come out that the reason she became a prosecutor was that her family had several run-ins with the law and that now she wanted vengeance. Well, now it sounds like she wanted cover, an air of legitimacy, so she can engage in her criminal, fraudulent behavior. By the way, Larry also says, Jeff, and is it really a coincidence that every prosecutor the deep state chose to go after President Trump, all of them are absolutely dirty crooks? That's an excellent point. Notice, every single one of them, criminals and scumbags. Or, criminals and scoundrels. Every single one of them. But there they were casting stones on Trump. Like, I'm telling you, you can't make this up. It's almost funny. If it wasn't so serious, You'd almost it's like a Saturday Night Live spoof. The criminals are going after Trump. And they're like, hey, let's accuse him of what we do. Exactly, word for word. What we do, we accuse him. Huh? Yeah. All right. Doug in Andover, you're going to kick us off. Doug, thanks for holding and welcome.
Hey, Jeff. Good morning.
Hi, Doug.
So you asked a question that made me call, and you asked, how did she acquire all these properties? How did she have the money? And the reality is, when you say it's an owner-occupied loan, not only do you get preferential interest rates, but you have much lower down payment requirements. So she could buy a house with, say, 3.5% down as an owner-occupied if it's FHA. But if it was an investment, she'd have to put 20 or 25% down. So basically, the falsification got her a better interest rate, but it also got her the ability to buy many more properties with the limited cash she had available. So it wasn't a mistake. That's not a mistake somebody makes. That's an intentional misrepresentation. And honestly, it's the most common type of mortgage fraud is the occupancy. And lenders usually are on the lookout for it. They try to make sure it makes sense based on where they live, their occupation, where they work. Now, granted, she's an elected official in the state of New York. I don't know how an underwriter let it slip past them that she's buying an owner-occupied property in Virginia. That doesn't make any sense to me. So, not even during COVID.
Doug, I'll be brutally honest with you. Grace is the finance minister in the House, right? I've always said this. She could be robbing me blind, and I have no idea. So, on these kind of financial matters, I always, defer to Grace. I didn't know the discrepancy was that much. So let's say, Doug, just to make it simple, you want to buy a $100,000 house. Okay. I mean, good luck. Where you can get a $100,000 house anymore, but just indulge me. So you're saying, look, Jeff, if you're going to be the owner and, occupy, you're going to live there, then they'll give you a 3.5%. That's how much you need for a down payment. But if you're going to rent it, then you got to put 25% down. So it's basically you're saying it goes from $3,500 to $25,000. Correct, Doug?
Programs like FHA, which is insured by the federal government, which is, obviously the worst type of bank fraud, right? And then also there's other state programs and conventional programs that are as little as 5% down when it's owner-occupied. Investment properties, they want minimum 20, typically 25% down. So a lot of people misrepresent that, and she did it knowingly as an elected official is crazy.
Doug, if you don't mind me asking, and again, if I'm getting too personal, please tell me, were you shocked about this? Not that she's dirty, but that she engaged in this kind of blatant mortgage and tax fraud?
I mean, I'm not shocked because, again, I kind of expect that from the people they're using to go after Trump. But the reality is it's such an obvious thing that she can get caught in so easily. I mean, obviously, in a perfect world, you never lie. But if you do lie, you don't lie on something you could be caught with your next pay stub. She literally is the Attorney General for New York at the time she did these loans. I mean, her income is from the state of New York. It's very obvious. It's obvious to the lender. It's obvious to anybody who's looking at it from the outside looking in. And she can't say, oh, geez, somebody else said to do it, which is what a lot of people defend themselves. They blame the loan originator.
Doug, have you called this show before, Doug? No, Mike, you can't give him a yes or no? No, Mike? I mean, so look at Iron Fist Mike. That's what he's calling himself. Doug, please don't be a stranger. Call again. Dynamite call. All right. Will she go to jail? Your call's next. 6:50 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Leticia James is sweating today, my friends. Criminal referral now has been sent to the Department of Justice from the Federal Housing Finance Agency. They've got her. I mean, they've got her, as I said, dead to rights. mortgage fraud, tax fraud, God knows what else they have her on. I just want to read this from Mark, who I think makes an absolutely great point. Jeff, on Messenger. Jeff, how beautiful would it be to see her sitting in a courtroom at the defendant's table instead of the prosecutor's table, sweating like the criminal fraudster she is. Jeff, karma is a bee. Barbara in Baltimore. Thanks for holding, Barbara, and welcome.
Thanks for my call. Lock her up. Remember that?
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
Lock her up. Lock her up. Your caller, Doug, that guy, he's a loan officer. Or he's absolutely a loan professional because everything he said is exactly spot on. Everything. And not only is Leticia James guilty of this, what about here in Maryland? Our AG who bought the property too. This is a common thing. You're going to find that this is like a thread. It goes all through all of these in these blue states with these. I'm going to say it. Black-run states, black-run cities, black officials, and they're going to play the race card. They're going to come out with that crap. Kim Blackwell should be put in charge of this. Kim Blackwell was an AG. I can't remember what state. It might have been Ohio, but
yeah, it was Ohio. Yeah, it was Ohio. Yeah, it was Ohio, Barbara.
It was Ohio. You know who I'm talking about?
Yes, he's a very good man.
Pit bull. Put him on that. Bring him out of retirement and let him lock him up. Lock them all up. Stacey Abrams is all of them. A lot of them. I won't say all, but many, many of them. Many of them. And I wish they'll come through Maryland because we're going to find it right here in these officials here, too. We've got so much money that's being thrown around in this state by these crooked politicians. There's no other way to describe it. They are crooked, and they're not doing their jobs. Look at the cities that they represent. They're crap holes, and they're getting worse. You can't even drive the street. You don't even want to drive. The streets got potholes in them the size of tires and as deep as a manhole. It's unbelievable, and they need to be locked up. I'm just so happy this is happening to her.
Well, Barbara, you mentioned earlier, it was Marilyn Mosby, I believe, is the one you're mentioning, and they got her. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Barbara, not only was she forced out of office, she went to jail, correct? And it was mortgage fraud almost identical to what Leticia James is now been caught red-handed doing. Am I wrong, Barbara?
House arrest. She's
under house arrest.
People think she's under that anymore. Check this out. Her husband was the mayor just appointed her husband for something where he's handling money. And we've got Wes Moore here. Our taxes are going up. We have one of the biggest lotteries in the country here in Maryland, and they're getting ready to take our taxes up, our fees up, even the barbershops, beauticians, everybody has got to get an increase for their licenses to do business in this place. We need to get rid of them. But they're going to play the race card. I can't wait for it to start. But we need somebody to get in there who's got brass balls. They're going to need to do what they need to do. And Pam Bondi, I'm tired of her being Barbie doll. I want her to just come out there with the hammer and do what she's supposed to do. Because
well Barbara, you anticipated my next question. Look, this guy Bill Pult is the guy who put together this whole referral. Laid out all of the evidence and the documentation. I mean, he dotted his I's, crossed his T's. As I said, he put Leticia James on a silver platter and gave her to Pam Bondi. Will, in your view, do you have confidence that Bondi will prosecute and that Bondi will deliver an indictment and a guilty verdict? Will Bondi put Leticia James in prison? What say you, Barbara?
No, I'm losing faith in her because I don't know. She said something about about revenge. This has nothing to do with revenge. This has to do with the law, and people need to know it. These people who get out here and start advocating for these people when something happens, yeah, you're going after them for the. Black people need to understand, and everybody else, and especially a lot of the bleeding heart white people who caused this stuff to happen too, because they need to be locked up, or at least prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. I'll say that. It's not about going after them for jail, but prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. And I mean all of them. And they don't have to do it so publicly. You know, I would like to see all of this carried out where they just go and scoop them up. Scoop them up, then they show up in court. That's when everybody knows. Don't even give the media a heads up on what's coming. They just scoop them up. I don't know why Stacey Abrams hasn't been pulled in already. Stacey Abrams is, $2 billion 2 months before the end of Biden? Good grief. I don't know how she's going to hide that.
No, she's embezzling. No, she's an embezzler. No, she was embezzling money. There's no question. Barbara, as always, dynamite stuff. Barbara, I want to wish you and your whole family a happy, blessed Easter. And thank you so much again for that call, Barbara. Victor and by the way, I agree with you completely. No media show. You don't have to tip off the media and have the cameras. I agree with her. Just go around, start putting the handcuffs on these corrupt Democrat criminals. Like, just come on, man. In other words, stop, talk is cheap. So don't just talk the talk, walk the walk. And I want to see now Leticia James in handcuffs and in an orange jumpsuit. Agree, disagree? Victor in Georgetown. Thanks for holding, Victor, and welcome.
And my heart is like an alligator today. This is my wheelhouse right here. And if you do have to hold me over after the break, feel free to do so. So listen to this. Michael Harrington, liberal congressman from Salem, Mass, 35 years ago, had to step down. He had to resign from Congress because of bank fraud, just like this. But in her case, this gets better, Jeff. You're going to love this. I was a mortgage banker and real estate finance guy for over 40 years. So not only, and I'll square away your thinking on the how do they come up with the money to buy these properties. Buying the first one, by the way, is the most difficult. But anyway, this is back in those days when Leticia refinanced or acquired this property. She selected the appraiser. You can't do that anymore. The bank selects the appraiser, but she selected an appraiser that would overlook the fact it was a 5-unit. He defrauded the bank also because he certified on that appraisal that it was a 4-unit. And I'm sure Pam Bondi, they know this stuff like this. This is such a common criminal act by these politicians that think they're going to get away with it. They're going to see that not only was she in cahoots trying to defraud the bank, so was the appraiser. And any appraiser listening, well, they're nodding their head right now saying, oh, yeah, it's documented as a 5-unit, but she put down that it was a 4. And hey, hell is coming for Leticia.
Victor, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but because I'm getting a lot of text messages on this. Victor, it's not just that it changes your the favorability of the loan if it's a 5-unit versus a 4-unit. From my understanding and from what the texters are telling me, say a 5-unit in Brooklyn is considered a quote unquote commercial unit, which means you pay higher taxes. So it's not just that you're able to defraud the bank and get much more favorable loans. It's that you also end up paying a lot less in taxes with a 4-unit as opposed to a 5-unit. Correct, Victor? Or am I being given bad information?
That's bad information. It doesn't affect the bank. The bank loan status does not affect City Hall. City Hall knows and taxes it as a 5-unit. But here's something that a lot of people miss, is that when you do a cash out refi, all right, Kuhner man, listen to this. You buy a property for $100, it goes to $350. You refi and you take out $150,000 cash, tax free. You can do that on a 1 to 4 family, very easy. Very difficult on the 5 unit. You're never going to be able to do it.
So you could almost, on a 4 unit, I know it's under as well, but just because she's putting 4 when her property is clearly a 5 unit, you're saying it's almost like your own personal piggy bank then. You can refinance and refinance and refinance, and it's tax-free, correct?
To do that refi, whereas a 5 unit, it's a commercially, it's called mixed use or non-conforming, not necessarily commercial. It can be residential, but it is an absolute common crime. And Jeff, here's the good news also. There are 1,000 people out there right now in government, crooked SOBs that are white as a ghost because they know we're coming. We're coming for them. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you, Victor. Look, this is to me, again, you may disagree with me. It's how stupid the crime is. I mean, I know it's common. I know it's done, and obviously it's done because people get away with it. I mean, I get it. But look, come on, just stand back. She made herself, she campaigned and she became state attorney general. She campaigned on getting Trump by hook or by crook. She openly said, they said, well, what are you going to get him on? I don't know. Well, we'll get him on something. So in other words, we're just going to get him. We don't have even evidence of any kind of a crime, but we'll make up a crime if we have to. So you're now in the media spotlight. You're the hero of the so-called resistance. What you did is unprecedented in American history. You tried to jail a former president of the United States. First of all, she indicted him, which was history making, unprecedented. Then she wanted to jail him, unprecedented. Now, you don't think that they're going to look into your background eventually? Like, are you that arrogant? Are you that drunk with power? I'm sorry, forgive me. Are you that stupid and clueless? And look, again, it's not, notice how members of Congress do it. To their credit, to give the devil their due. They got front companies, shell companies. They use, like Biden uses Hunter. They got family members and they put businesses up with their family, and it's their family's, their son's name or their brother's name. And they always get a partner or two who's not a member of the family. Right? To kind of dilute it even more. So you see how smart they are. They have shell companies, front companies. It's never them. It's never they never put their signature on the document. Right? It's never black and white where it's, you got them. Got them. It's always a couple levels or layers removed. Okay? A bit like the mob. Like in other words, they're smart. They're smart criminals. It's harder to get them. Really, 4 unit, 5 unit. Look, it's either a 4 unit or it's a 5 unit. And it's a 5 unit. It's got 5 units. The city says it's 5 units. Everybody says it's a 5 unit. So you're caught. Now, it's, one time you can say it was a slip up. But in document after document, loan application after loan application, 4 units. You're done. You're done. Your father is your husband and you've never been married? So, primary residence in Virginia and you're the state attorney general? Either it's your primary residence or it isn't your primary residence. Well, there's your signature saying it's primary residence. It's so easy. It's so, it's like, I don't know, dealing drugs on a street corner. Okay, just put the video. Just film. There she is. Yep, there's the bag of cocaine. Yep, there's the money exchanging hands. Okay, call in the cops. Like, how stupid can you be? This is who they get to go after Trump? Ay, ay, ay. Ay, ay, ay. Ken in Georgia. Thanks for holding, Ken, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Ken?
Doing good. I want to talk about you guys kind of beating on Pam and Kash Patel for a little bit. If she's not going to really prosecute the case, she's going to have to rely on her DA office in New York to do it. And if I was her, I wouldn't trust any of them, because they would probably do something to mess up the case and get it thrown out. So it's going to take time to flush that out. They're going to have to flush out all these DA offices and all these FBI higher-ups just to get rid of them. They have to clear that out first. Bongino said that a couple of days ago. I understand it's what it is, but we can't move that quick. We can't trust anybody here.
Well, look, I mean, Ken, I understand more with, frankly, Kash Patel at the FBI, because that place is completely corrupt and crooked from top to bottom. And if you've noticed, I'll nudge him here or there. I think Bondi, to be honest with you, has been slow. I'm just going to call it as it is. Now, again, she's got, Leticia James was served up to her now on a silver platter. I want to see her pull the proverbial trigger. She can appoint her, a specific person. She was a attorney general in Florida. There are definitely good people, good prosecutors that she could give this case to. This is a slam dunk. I don't look. The only card Leticia James at this point can play is the race card, but I don't see how that's going to get her out. She can't even play, because you see, she dug her own grave. She can't even play the third party card. In other words, well, I had my accountants handle it, or I had my lawyers handle it, or I had my agent handle it. Because when she went after Trump by her own standard, it's what she said. She said, it doesn't matter if you had an accountant do it, or someone else do it, or your lawyers do it. You are responsible for every document that you sign. Every single document. In other words, you have to read every document line by line, word for word. This is what she said. So, according to her standard now, she's done. She's cooked. She's cooked. There's no way out for her. So, Ken, to be honest, I'm like, okay, I really love it that there's a criminal referral. But notice, that didn't come from Pam Bondi. That came from the Federal Housing Finance Agency and Bill Pult. And Pult basically said, no, I did it on my own. He goes, because I don't trust anybody. So I did it all on my own. I've gathered all the evidence. And it's almost as if he's sort of like here. And then he made a very big public announcement. And he released the criminal referral letter that he sent to Pam Bondi. So in other words, nobody can sweep this under the rug. So here is the referral. Here is all the damning evidence. I gave it to Bondi. Nobody can claim she never got it. Here it is. Ball is in your court. Now, Ken, obviously she's got to look at it. Her people have to read it. But if she doesn't go after Leticia James, she's got to go. If you want my litmus test, this is my litmus test. If Pam Bondi says we will not, I'm telling you she will. She'll have no choice. Because, she's guilty as sin. Okay, Leticia James is guilty as sin. But for whatever reason, if Pam Bondi says no, she's got to go. Don't tell me you can't find one prosecutor in the entire United States that can't go after Leticia James. So, no, I disagree with you, Ken. I think she's been slow. I don't think she's been very aggressive. I think she's been passive. Maybe it's a learning curve. Fine. I said I'm willing to give her to the end of the summer. Now, end of the summer, if you don't have your ducks in a row by then, we need a new attorney general. Final word to you, Ken.
Yeah, Jeff, that's usually what happens is somebody builds the case for the prosecution. Prosecution gets it, and then they issue to the judge to issue an arrest warrant so the FBI can go pick them up. She's got to hand that case off to an attorney she can trust, a prosecutor she can trust. Because if the prosecutor doesn't share all the evidence with the defendant's attorney, it's thrown out. You got to trust these. I don't think she's had that time to vet everybody, and especially in New York. Most of the DOJ have been replaced by Obama and Biden people, Merrick people. They're not good. They're horrible. They'll probably do something just to mess up the case or get thrown out.
Well, yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Ken. You're right. There's a lot of corruption and a lot of crooked people in government and a lot of radical leftists. You're completely right. But look, she now runs the DOJ. It's her department. She's got to start firing people, and she's got to start bringing in good people. And she's got a lot of good people to pick from her years as Attorney General in Florida. So this should be a relatively easy case for her to prosecute, or her people to prosecute. So, look, I think she'll go after them. I think Bill Pult has done a magnificent job. All I'm saying, Ken, is if she doesn't pull the trigger on this, she's got to go. She won't, but I'm just telling you, she's got to go. So we'll see what happens. Ken, thank you very much. I really appreciate that call. No, look, really, as Eric just pointed out to me on Messenger, he's laughing. It's full of like these LOL emojis. But, the case that she was building against Trump was really the case she was building against herself. In other words, no, really, it's like, this is how pathological this is. It's like, well, we got to get him. Well, how do we get him? Oh, you know what? Let me just go after myself and then just put his name on everything. That's how we'll get him. You can't make this up. 720 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, liberalism's worst nightmare, baby. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, I'm going to ask a very straight poll question of the day. And the reason why I'm asking a very straight poll question of the day is because I want to read some text messages I've been getting, because it's reflective, I wouldn't say of a majority, but a really substantial minority in the audience. I would say maybe 45%. It's almost 50-50, actually, about whether you think Leticia James will actually be convicted and actually, be indicted, be prosecuted, and be convicted. So let me ask you, it's the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's Quality Roofing, Siding, and Windows. Will Leticia James be indicted and convicted on mortgage fraud and tax fraud? And there's going to be a whole lot of charges, I guarantee it. But right now, the criminal referral is for mortgage fraud, so we'll just leave it at mortgage fraud. Will Leticia James be prosecuted, indicted, and convicted on mortgage fraud? Now, the question is not, do you want it to happen? I think that's 100-0. The question is, do you believe, will it happen? In other words, will the DOJ deliver? That's the question now. So, will she be prosecuted and convicted? A, yes. B, no. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, Kuhn as in national ER. You can also vote via X. Again, I was very active on X last night. My handle there, at the Kuhner Report. It's all one word, Kuhn as in national ER. Okay, so a lot of you are very, 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 very skeptical. Let's put it this way. Very, very skeptical. So let me just give you an example. This is Jim on Messenger. Jeff, good morning. Well, good morning to you, Jim. Pam Bondi has been a toothless tiger. If she was serious, Leticia James would have received a DOJ letter yesterday. But Bondi is too busy giving Fox News interviews on the same old MS-13 illegal immigrant. I've lost hope in Pam Bondi and Kash Patel already. And then Jim continues, although we all hope to see Leticia James go down, I don't believe it. if she does get found guilty, I'll buy you the biggest steak at the Hanover Street Chop House. I got to say, when I read that, let me just, be brutally honest with you, like I'm in the confessional. I'm like, I don't know if I would take the bet. Like, in other words, hey, if, I'm so, in other words, am I convinced or am I sure that Leticia James is going to be convicted? That the DOJ is going to go with a hard prosecution, indict her, and then convict her? I'll be honest, I don't know if I'm willing to put a steak dinner on it. But anyway, I don't know. I hope I'm wrong. I hope they do it. But, okay, this is from Craig on Messenger. And he asks a really good question. Jeff, does Leticia James, does the father of Leticia James know that she was claiming him on these mortgage applications as her husband? Great question, Craig. Great question. Now, there's only two possibilities. It's his signature. It's his signature that on two mortgage applications that says he's the husband. Now, either he was willingly in on it. Okay, let's defraud the bank. Let's lie. You don't have a husband, but I'm daddy and I'll pretend to be your husband. Or she forged his name and she forged his signature. If that's even makes it even worse. So I think he knew personally. I think he knew, and I think he helped participate in this fraud. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, he didn't know. Well, then she forged his signature. I mean, it just gets worse and worse and worse. Okay, one more, and then I want to go to the phone lines. You can text the Kuhner Man 70470. 70470. I love this text. This is from 603. Again, we're getting a lot of stuff from New Hampshire. Jeff, I'm not into political porn. But let's just say for a moment that Leticia James is indeed indicted and then eventually prosecuted for this crime. As far as I know, most courtroom proceedings are open to the public. How delicious would it be if President Donald J. Trump, of all people, decided to go sit in the courtroom for the sentencing? I'm just thinking out loud here. Forget pay-per-view. I'm telling you, you want to make a ton of cash? I would pay $500. I'm serious. Pay-per-view, $500. Take my money now. She's convicted, and they're reading her sentence, and to see Donald Trump in that courtroom, $500, take my money. 7:31 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. Okay, my friends, heads up. We're going to have Alan Dershowitz on in about an hour and a half at 9 o'clock here on the Kuhner Report. No, I know. He's basically been a lifelong Democrat and a lifelong liberal. However, he's making a lot of sense when it comes to civil liberties issues. And I'm going to ask him about Trump's showdown with Harvard University, the freezing of funds, maybe even now revoking their tax-exempt status over rampant anti-Semitism, not just at Harvard, but at our elite universities across the country. And Judge Boasberg, James Boasberg, struck again last night. He is now threatening to hold top Trump administration officials in contempt of court, saying he's going to send them to prison. Rubio, he wants behind bars. Pam Bondi, believe it or not, behind bars. Tom Homan, behind bars. Because they defied his court order to deport hundreds of thousands of Venezuelan gangbangers, Tren de Aragua, back to Venezuela, or in this case to El Salvador, to be held at a supermax prison there. So he now says that they are defying his order to give him the information that he wants on that decision to send them to that maximum security prison in El Salvador. And this is a contempt of court. And he now says he's ready to appoint a special prosecutor to go after senior Trump people and put them all behind bars. So I'm going to talk to Alan Dershowitz about those two issues. It should be very good, compelling radio. So that's coming up at 9:00. But first, Leticia James, criminal referral now to the Department of Justice. She's committed mortgage fraud, tax fraud, God knows what other kinds of fraud. My question to you, will she go to jail? Will she be put behind bars? Do you think she will be prosecuted and convicted? 617-266-6868. Andy in Milford. Thanks for holding, Andy, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Andy.
Thank you for my call. First of all, Jeff, and this is just true Marxist form. Let's just get this straight. Leticia James projected on President Trump everything she is to a T. It never was President Trump that was any of those things that she accused him of, indicted him for, and eventually fraudulently convicted him of. It was her. It was all her all along. And that's consistent with all the rest of these moonbats, Jeff. I mean, even the situation with Nikki Maselli in Boston, the Nazi in the brown shirt, it was that guy. And so...
Spencer Baldwin, Andy, just so that you know, he's been outed. The guy that was harassing and verbally assaulting Nikki Maselli on the street, on the sidewalk, just for wearing a Trump 47 cap. And again, Nikki Maselli is very lucky he wasn't physically assaulted. Very lucky he wasn't blindsided or, ambushed or beaten up or stabbed or God knows what. But he's been outed now. He's a student at Mass Art, the College of Massachusetts Art and Design. He's at Mass Art, and his name is Spencer Baldwin. I tweeted it, X'd it, whatever you want to call it. I put it up on X about a week ago. But anyway, sorry, Andy. Please keep going.
Yes. So going forward, anytime, whether it's a moonbat prosecutor, moonbat lawmaker gets going with making a whole lot of the smoke that one of our people is this, that, or the other thing, our first instinct has to be to just look into their background with a fine-tooth comb and see if they are actually all those things they're accusing our people of. And I'm willing to bet 98% of the case it's them. This has happened all down through history. This is what Marxists do. They project on their opponents what they are.
Andy,
and I really believe.
Don't get me wrong, Andy. I only have eyes for my wife, but I love you in a non-sexual way, my friend. Andy, if my grandfather was alive today, and may God bless him, and God take care of his soul, he would buy you a drink. I'm telling you, he'd be Andy, let me buy you a drink. What are you drinking, Andy? I'm telling you, my granddad would buy you a drink. Because my grandfather, as you know, who spent 3 years in a communist concentration camp and eventually was driven out of what is today Croatia, then Yugoslavia, by the communists. And so he became a lifelong anti-communist. And what he always, and he met with fellow anti-communists, and he was just part of that movement, in exile. And what he always told me was, everything the communists accuse us of, the anti-communists, is what the communists are guilty of. And they would come out with these outlandish accusations. Mass graves, mass killings. And they'd be like, Did we ever do any of this? And they'd be like, oh, no, I mean, do you ever hear rumors of anything? They go, no, what is this guy talking? It turns out they were the ones dumping bodies in mass graves. Literally. Or they would go on about, pedophilia. And they, these people, they're bugging kids. They're buggering kids. They're like, God, they're so indecent. They're so immoral. And we're like, who the hell among us is buggering kids? Turns out, senior communist officials, they were into kids. They would abduct them off the streets, and then the party apparatchiks would have their way with them. And then eventually, once they're done with them, they'd kill them or throw them in a gulag or in a prison camp or whatever. So my grandfather said it's incredible. Everything they accuse us of, they're guilty of themselves. And my grandfather said, and he said it's almost, there's an evil genius to it. He goes, because look how descriptive they are. Look how precise they are. Look how they're able to give you these blow-by-blow details of how things are done. And you think, well, if they know all that detail, there's got to be something to this. Yes, it's because they've done it themselves. That's why they're so familiar with it. And so now it all starts to make sense. So there's Leticia James rattling things off. Oh, this is a fraud. This is a fraud. This was misleading. This is a false statement. This. And it turns out it was her. She was literally describing her own portfolio. The only one scamming the system and defrauding banks and defrauding people was her. Andy, final word to you, my friend.
Final word, Jeff, is Pam Bondi has no choice but to go after Leticia James hard and just go wherever the facts and the law are going to lead her. Because if she doesn't, Jeff, the only conclusion will be crime pays as long as you're a Democrat. This is it. This two-tiered justice system has to end now. If it doesn't, then the only conclusion is crime pays as long as you're a Democrat.
Oh, you're dead on. I mean, Andy, honestly, dynamite. Andy, thank you very much for that call. He's right. Crime pays. If you're a Democrat, crime pays. That's going to be the only conclusion. Like, we can catch you red-handed, black and white, on paper, lie after lie, fraud after fraud after fraud after fraud. And nothing happens to you? Well, then, you don't get more clear-cut evidence than this. Outside of, I don't know, a videotape, of you, I don't know, holding up a bank. Okay, I guess. Okay, but outside of that, I mean, it's on paper. And it's again and again. And we all make mistakes in paperwork. It's not a one-off. It's hundreds and hundreds of pages. Application after application going back 30 years. The woman's a crook. Dan in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Dan, and welcome.
Hey, thanks for taking the call, Jeff.
My pleasure, Dan.
Geez, when you look at Leticia James, and I hate to be superficial, but you can see why that she put her father down as her husband, because only a father would marry her with a face like that. I mean, when you really take a look at her, I think she's got a greater chance being picked up by the NFL or the UFC than going to jail. Let's face it. She is offensive. She could be an offensive lineman on any football team. She's offensive from the inside and on the outside. And let me tell you, what comes around in this world goes around in this world, Jeff. And that woman, quite honestly, has just overstepped her bounds. Just like Jack Smith, just like this judge that's...
Dan, that's not you. You're on a roll. That's iron-fisted Mike. Mike, you want to talk about power? Mike, I think you and Leticia James would really get along. You guys love the power trip, huh, Mike? He's got that button, and he's going to use it. Dan, please hang on. I'm coming right back to you. 750 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. All right, let's go right back to Dan in New Hampshire. Dan, you're saying that Leticia James is a monster. She's corrupt on the outside, on the inside. Everything about her, frankly, is offensive. Please pick up where you left off.
You know, Jeff, I also think that the WWF would pick her up and we could give her a name of Shamu, and I think that she could make a lot of money after a political career, although I don't know how much she could do when she hits jail. Her favorite color is going to be orange. You know that. Just by looking at her, anything that she wears, she doesn't look good in. She's the queen of homeliness. She's the queen of ugliness. And she's obviously does not know the law. She's basically put President Trump through hell and back, and not even knowing that she's been breaking the law all the time herself. So the bottom line is, Jeff, is that she's got a face only a father could marry. If I were ever married something like that, I think after I woke up, I'd jump off the roof of the 5-family house.
Dan, thank you. Dan, thank you very much for that call. Dan in North Andover. Thanks for holding, Dan, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Dan.
Happy Easter.
Happy Easter. All the best to you and your family, Dan.
And thank you so much. And can it be any more real Easter than trying to break down this swamp? Anyway, so Jeff, all the mortgage guys are calling today. I recognize all the voices. I've been in the mortgage business for 35 years, actually 35 plus. But Jeff, there is no way that mistake made it through without pressure. So as Attorney General, she is the ultimate regulator for the state of New York. State of New York mortgage banking license is probably worth anywhere between $3 and $5 million. Okay, so how much pressure was put on that underwriter to look the other way because she was the Attorney General?
That's a great point, Dan. That's a great point. And Dan, let me ask you this: you're right. The Brooklyn, the 4 units versus 5 units, that was obvious fraud. But what about Virginia? How do you explain that one, Dan? To put down that as your primary residence, Norfolk, Virginia, which, by the way, ends up being a rental property, which she hasn't declared any income on. By the way, same thing with the other units. The 5 units that she has, all of them are rental properties, no income. She's not declared a penny in income. But, let that go, as I like to say, Dan. So you're the Attorney General of New York, and the law stipulates you must have your primary residence in New York. Yet she's able to get primary residence, the application to go through on a property in Norfolk. How did they do that one, Dan? I get having influence in New York, but how does she have influence in Virginia?
That's the scary one, Jeff, because she was already Attorney General in 2023. She has the power. So, like for instance, my bank, Jeff, we don't lend just in Massachusetts and just in Florida, we lend across the country. That license or the screw ups we could end up within New York are worth a hell of a lot of money. So we're willing to literally you'd have to have caved under pressure from the Attorney General to close your eyes on it. I'm not saying my bank would, but I'm saying most lenders out there that I know would look the other way for the Attorney General. And that's where the real crime is. Interesting.
Dan, let me ask you, it's mortgage fraud, it's tax fraud, she's undeclared income, apparently it's been going on for decades. How much trouble is she really in? If Pam Bondi puts the screws in her and goes for a really hard, aggressive prosecution, is Leticia James in serious trouble? Can she go to jail?
So I've been in the business a long time, Jeff, I've seen a lot of young family people go to jail for the same thing. You see, so there is real. It is real. It's bad. You know, when she bought that house in Virginia, she took that house off the market so some first-time buyer couldn't have bought it. That goes for our whole housing crisis and everything else. She is a nasty woman. But Jeff, the sale price of that house in Virginia wasn't that much money. She makes $220,000 a year as the Attorney General for the state of New York. She couldn't have put down the 30 or 40 grand to keep her from not getting in trouble on this. That's how much of a sleaze she is.
Dan, for people listening who aren't, as knowledgeable about the real estate market and, housing and lending in housing, what is the difference, say, in Norfolk, Virginia, between putting it down as a primary residence versus a rental property in terms of a down payment? What would be the discrepancy, Dan?
So probably in this case, it was probably a $50,000 difference in down payment. But again, she's making $220,000. She owns other real estate. She could have borrowed against the other real estate. Of course, she would have probably committed fraud doing that too. But yeah, so there were ways for her to make this transaction happen and not put herself in jeopardy. As an attorney, I get this question asked all the time. Young buyers buying their second or third property. Can I do this? No, it's not worth it. It's not worth going to jail for. So, I don't get it. I look at it and go, wow, how,
Dan, is she that corrupt? Is she that greedy? In other words, like as you put it, like you're willing to go to jail over $50,000? Like, lady, are you nuts? So is she that greedy, or is she that narcissistic that she just thinks they'll never get me? Is she that arrogant? She thinks, well, I'm a Democrat. I'm a state, New York Attorney General. And so I'm bulletproof. I can do anything I want with impunity. I'm immune from anything. I can do whatever I want. Is it more arrogance, bordering almost on megalomania? Or is it just sheer greed? And you're so greedy, you end up making blatant, stupid mistakes.
I think it's a little bit of both. So she was, before she was Attorney General, she was city councilor in New York, right? And she ran on the platforms of helping provide housing for the poor or the working class, right? So, so she knows the rules, Jeff.
Incredible. Honestly, incredible. Incredible. Dan, thank you very much for that call, as always. And again, happy blessed Easter to you and your whole family. Paul in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Paul, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. How you doing this morning?
Good. How are you, Paul?
Good. Jeff, my biggest concern, and I almost look at this as a crisis in Trump's administration, he's on top of so many things so quickly. And if I don't hear something real quick from him or Pam Bondi that prosecution is going forward, I'm convinced that there's Republicans who've also done this, and they got the checkmate on him, and he can't let this go. Otherwise, he's going to lose some Republicans. Is that possible?
Well, look, that's my fear. See, my fear, Paul, is that there's so much corruption now that they're trying to obstruct and block Trump on every front, on every angle. And this story in particular, if they don't aggressively prosecute Leticia James. Now, I'm telling you, I think Trump's going to make this happen. Okay, just between you and me. Look, no one can stand her more than him. I mean, she's sick that crazy judge Engoron after her on that ridiculous $450 million civil case. And by the way, she didn't just want $450 million, if you remember. She said, I want to take his whole business. I want to take everything. And Engoron said, well, no, we're not going to take everything, but we'll hit him with a $450 million fine. Then she told Alvin Bragg, get him on the, the on bookkeeping, on ridiculous bookkeeping. So, no one wants to get her more than Trump. And that's why I think Trump's going to make this happen. So whether Pam Bondi wants to or not, I think is irrelevant. Trump's going to drive this to the finish line. But for whatever reason, if they don't go forward with this, he's got a problem. Then he's got a real problem. Because that means you got people in his administration that are actively sabotaging him. Look, Paul, just to show you the difference, and I don't know why I get blowback over this, but I do. I get tremendous blowback. People say I'm no different than Biden. I'm no different than the Democrats. I just want to put people in jail for the sake of putting people in jail. I'm like, no. I want real corrupt crooks and criminals to be put in jail. And my only point is, look how aggressive the Democrats are going after innocent people. Innocent people. We can't be aggressive in going after guilty people. But anyway, my point is this. In the first 100 days of Biden's presidency, okay, it's about 100 days now, give or take, 400 Trump supporters indicted, charged, and being prosecuted, some already making plea deals and going to jail. 400. 400. Let me repeat that. So far, under Trump and this DOJ, 0. I'm not talking Tren de Aragua or MS-13, or I'm talking about supporters, Democrat supporters. So 0 Democrat criminals so far. A 0. 1 indictment or 1 prosecution, not even 1. At this time in Biden's presidency, 400 Trump supporters. And by the way, 99% of them innocent. Innocent. Now, I'm not saying they do 400, we do 400. They do 400 innocent, we do 400 innocent. No. What I'm saying is, if they're guilty, get them. And I'm still waiting. Now, this is the closest that we've come, Paul. This is why this is such a huge story. You've got now a very detailed, incredibly damning, frankly irrefutable criminal referral that came, again, not from a prosecutor within the DOJ. It came from the Federal Housing Finance Agency, the director, Bill Pulte, P-U-L-T-E, who did it independently of the DOJ, and frankly, independently even of the entire Trump team. And he's the one who did the investigation, basically on his own. And on his own, a one-man gang found all of this. Imagine if you put a team of good prosecutors on the case. What else they're going to find? Because this is just the tip of the iceberg. And then, because he's covering his rear end, because he knows how Washington works, he makes it very public. Here is my criminal referral. Here, copies to the media. Here. And then he announces, I'm sending it now over to the Justice Department, straight to Pam Bondi's desk. So in other words, she can't say she didn't get it. The DOJ can't say they didn't get it. He's almost forcing her to look at it and to do something about it. So the criminal referral now has landed straight on her lap. I think she's going to prosecute, or whatever, have lawyers, have people in her office prosecute. But again, if she doesn't, she's got to go. I'm sorry. I mean, Paul, am I wrong?
No, you're not. And the very fact that Pulte had to do this concerns me. It's totally out of protocol. That's not the way you do things. And he had to do it to make sure it gets done. And that tells me that this is probably something that Pam Bondi and maybe even Trump is saying, oh, Jesus, how do we deal with this? Because this is going to blow the whole system skywide. And a lot of Republicans are going to go with it, and that's the problem.
I agree. No, Paul, I completely agree. See, that's the corruption seeps across both parties. It's across the entire political establishment. It's the uniparty. And that's the constant wall. That's the constant opposition that Trump keeps facing within his own party again and again and again. You go too hard on corruption, Donald, you're not just going to bring down the Democrats. You're going to bring down many of us. That's what the Republicans are mortally afraid of. And that's why they're extremely timid and very tepid. And Trump's not guilty, so, he doesn't care. I don't blame him. He's, look, I don't want to protect corrupt people, but that's the biggest problem that he faces. So anyway, look, I hope she goes down. I think she will go down. She should go down. And I think you're right. I think this is going to be the first domino, and other dominoes are going to fall. You have no idea how many people engage in politics in this kind of naked fraud. Mortgage fraud, tax fraud, properties that are undeclared, rental income that's undeclared. They play games, 4 units, 5 units. They've got, I don't know how many primary residences across God knows how many different states. I mean, they're up to their eyeballs in these kind of shenanigans. Paul, thank you very much for that call. Bill in Rhode Island. Thanks for holding, Bill, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. How are you, sir?
Very good. Honestly, that news yesterday, it's going to be a nice Easter, Bill. Very nice Easter.
Sure, I think it would be even a better Easter, but that's okay. We'll run with it. So in the meantime, this is, I hope, the foundation of what I would think is RICO. And it takes, and I had called you and you were very kind a few weeks ago with me stating that these sizes of cases take time to build. Again, I'm going to say this now. I wish that this is the way it goes. I think the last caller before me had great points stating that when you throw a net in the water, you're going to get some good fish too. There's no question about that. But remember, this was about draining the swamp. And he didn't say this is about getting Democrats. This is about getting all people who are unethical and don't do the right thing. I think we're going to be very surprised in a sad way of how many of the people who maybe on the Republican side are also in that net of bad fish. And that's the way the net's going to fall. There's nothing we can do about that. And if not, it's a great thing. But I think that if I were to be a betting man and only put $1 on the race, if you may, in this situation, not a lot of money, I would bet that it's going to be a massive RICO act. You need a couple of people to rat. You just need a hole in the boat, Jeff. And past experience from reading the newspapers, you need one person to say that they told me to lay the case down. They advised me that I would be taken care of. They advised me that I had to go after the ex-president. And when that hole opens, everybody's going to be pointing to everybody. Because remember, listeners, RICO means they can take everything. Your houses, your cars, they can turn you broke. Jeff, what's your opinion?
Oh, Bill, look, I'm gonna answer your questions or your points with a question to you. Bill, in all seriousness, if we had a massive organized crime problem in this country, like the way we had in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, Al Capone's and, whatever, Lucky Luciano's. And I would say to you, Bill, what's the most effective way? We want to bring them down. What's the most effective way to go after these mob bosses? What would you say to me?
Investigation to build a case. And to get more specific from my readings and me educating myself and talking to the people in Washington, there is an organized, quote.
Oh, no, I agree with you. No, Bill, you would say to me, right? You would say, Jeff, you get him on RICO. That's how you bring him down, Jeff. You get him on RICO, right? That's what you would say to me. Now, and my point is, to further your point, that's exactly how you have to go after politicians. And you're saying, well, Jeff, whoa, I mean, the mob, politicians, it's a mafia. Really, this is a mafia. He calls it the swamp. Okay, that's Donald Trump. To me, if you want to use an Eastern European term, it's a mafia state. It's a political mafia state. And if you look at politicians, Democrats, Republicans across the board, they're just as corrupt and in many ways just as vicious and ruthless as the mob. They're gangsters. They're political gangsters. So, to your point, if the best way to bring down the mob is RICO, then I'm telling you the best way to bring down the political mob, the political mafia, is RICO. And I agree with you, Bill. Look, you're going to see a lot of Republicans go down, not just Democrats. And let me just say this. Here, I can tell you personally, I can testify to this. Outside of one hand, and I'm not exaggerating, one hand, every other Republican in Massachusetts, the Democrats are all dirty. They're all dirty. Outside of, 5 fingers on a hand? Okay, maybe 5, maybe 2 hands, I guess. The Massachusetts Republican Party is dirty, dirty, dirty. They're as corrupt as the Democrats. And the media, the so-called what's left of the conservative media, whether it's the Herald and some of their people, let's put it that way, corrupt to the bone. That's a fact. 821 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer, 617-266-6868. Couple lines are open if you want to jump on. Okay, I promise I'm going to continue to take your calls on Leticia James, obviously, and the decision by the Department of Justice now to potentially prosecute her based on a criminal referral. As Tracy pointed out to me, I thought in a really, really good message on Messenger, she said, Jeff, Leticia James never thought she was ever going to get caught because she never thought Trump was going to win. They were convinced that her lawfare against Trump would have done enough political damage to guarantee a Kamala Harris victory. And when Trump won, like many Democrats, like many moonbats, she was shocked. She was stunned. She didn't see it coming. And now that he won, she's reaping the whirlwind. So, and I think, Tracy, I think you're dead on. I don't think she saw Trump winning. So she thought, well, they're not going to catch this obvious fraud because, let's be honest, had Kamala won, she'd be in the clear. In fact, I bet that was even the deal. That's how you use people like this. We're going to overlook all of these crimes. We just need you to get the evil orange man. You willing to do it? You're willing to make these outrageous accusations and charges against him? You willing to do this lawfare on our behalf? So, okay, and then we'll forget the mortgage fraud, the tax fraud, and all the other crimes. Just be a good soldier. Well, Trump won, and now she's going to pay, potentially, hopefully, a big price. Okay, speaking of paying a big price, this to me is beyond stomach turning. It's beyond stomach turning. And I'm telling you, you mark my words, Kuhner country. Please, you can hold me to this. What the Democrats are now doing, rallying around this MS-13 gangbanger who was deported to his home country of El Salvador, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, how they are now deifying this guy, lionizing him, turning him into this cause célèbre, as if he's somehow a victim of Donald Trump and mistakenly deported and his due process rights have been violated and this is un-American. This is the act of a dictator. They've now gone so extreme in their opposition to Trump that Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen and a delegation of Democrats led by him literally flew to El Salvador, by the way, on our dime. This was taxpayer dollars, to plead with El Salvador's president, Nayib Bukele, with El Salvador's president Bukele, pleading with him to let Garcia go, to return him to the United States. Listen now to Chris Van Hollen at a press conference, and there was a massive amount of media. And they're all carrying water now for Van Hollen and for Garcia. And listen to what he said. Roll cut 15, Mike.
It is absolutely unjust and illegal to have this Marylander detained one more day in a notorious prison in El Salvador. Of course, President Trump could have just said, bring him home. Of course he could have done that. But this is an administration that has lied about Mr. Abrego Garcia, right? The vice president of the United States tweeted out that he had a criminal record. That was a lie. They're just lying. They've gotten caught lying. They don't want to admit it. And they have an obligation to bring him home. But I will say the president of El Salvador should not now take it upon himself to say that he is detaining him for one more day, because that is kidnapping. I understand that the Attorney General said that we would provide a plane to bring him home. So all the president of El Salvador has to do now is hand over and release an innocent man and let him come home to his family.
This guy's disgusting. I'm telling you, he's disgusting. I tore into him on X last night, and I'm telling you, I'm going to tear into him again. And I think every single Democrat now, I'm speaking to all of you, you should be holding your heads in shame. You go to El Salvador, or in this case, Van Hollen goes to El Salvador to plead for this MS-13 gangbanger, a human trafficker, a foreign terrorist. Remember, MS-13 is designated as a foreign terrorist organization, a criminal, illegal alien. Notice he says he's a Marylander. What do you mean he's a Marylander? He's an illegal alien, you moron. And now it turns out, I'm going to play the cut on the other side, he's also a wife beater. This guy punched and beat his wife. Abrego Garcia punched and beat his wife. And she had to get a restraining order on him. And this is the guy you're defending? This is the guy you're pleading for? You're willing to go to the mat for him? Yet when Rachel Morin was brutally murdered, and she's also a citizen of, or she was a citizen of Maryland, this guy never picked up the phone. This guy never called for an investigation. He never even called her mother. Nothing. 832 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, cry for Kilmar Abrego Garcia. That's now what the Democrats and the media are doing. I'm not kidding. We now are crying for MS-13 gangbangers, and we're demanding, I've never seen this before in my life, that we return criminals and terrorists who are illegal aliens. They keep forgetting to mention that. Back into the United States. This is incredible. So, Chris Van Hollen, a senator from Maryland, Democrat moonbat, flies to El Salvador, again, on our dime. Remember, we paid for all this. To conduct foreign policy that is against the Trump administration and the official policy of the United States government. That's a violation of the Logan Act. As I said on X last night, that's treason. That's a direct, that's black and white, the black letter law violation of the Logan Act, in which you have an individual conducting foreign policy on behalf of the American government that is at odds with the Secretary of State and the President of the United States, the official policy, foreign policy of the United States. The policy of Marco Rubio and the policy of Donald Trump, his boss, is to not just deport illegal aliens. It's not just to deport criminal illegal aliens, but it is in particular to deport Tren de Aragua and MS-13 terrorists, gangbangers. MS-13 is a designated terrorist organization. Tren de Aragua, designated terrorist organization. Now, once you're a terrorist or designated as a terrorist, they can deport you, no questions asked, if you're an illegal. If you're a foreigner or an illegal, there's no question. Out. There's nothing to discuss here. Instead, Van Hollen goes to El Salvador and tries to plead his case with Bukele, the president of El Salvador, who, thank the Lord, told him to go fly a kite. Forgive me, he told him blank off, kiss off. Now, if that's not a violation of the Logan Act, I don't know what is. I'm telling you, Van Hollen should be arrested. Kash Patel, yes, I'm calling out Kash Patel. Yes, I'm calling out Dan Bongino, the deputy FBI director. As I said on X last night, both men I like, both men I admire, both men I support. But guys, come on. The moment he comes back at an airport, lands on American soil, the FBI should be there, handcuffs. This is a violation of the Logan Act, tough guy. Listen now to the mother of Rachel Morin. She was murdered by a gangbanger. She was violated and brutally murdered in the most horrendous way possible. It was a huge story. A mother who had multiple children. 5 children now have no mother. As everyone said, she was a great mom, loved her kids. Van Hollen never, and even though it was high profile, was prominent in the media, became a big issue politically, and Rachel Morin was a Maryland resident, an American citizen. Her mother is a Maryland resident, an American citizen. Did Van Hollen ever call the mom? Did Van Hollen ever say, can I do something for you? Can I comfort you? Do you need anything? Did Van Hollen or Kamala Harris or Joe Biden, did they ever come out and say, we're going to move heaven and earth to find this man who brutally murdered this woman, this illegal alien gangbanger? Nothing. Nothing. It's like she didn't exist. Listen now to Patty Morin from Maryland. Van Hollen is her senator, an angel mom. Here's what she said on Fox yesterday. Roll cut 15A. Mike.
What are your thoughts on your senator going to bat for this illegal, but did he ever say anything to you and your family about your loss, to ever call you, ever take the time to be with you?
No, actually, I'm very angry. I'm actually outraged, but I'm too sad at the moment to show anger at the same time. He did not call our family. He did not give condolences. There was no action on the Democratic Party in any way, from Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Mayorkas, anyone here in Maryland, none of the senators did anything to help search for the murderer of my daughter.
They wouldn't even pick up the phone and offer their condolences. They didn't lift a finger. Literally, I'm telling you, they didn't lift a finger. Forgive me, Patty Morin, with all due respect, I can't, look, my children are everything to me, obviously, and my wife. I can't imagine losing my kids. I just can't before I die. I'm just telling you, if I was to lose one of my children, never mind in such a heinous, brutal fashion, it would tear my heart out. And you can see it on her face. You can see it every time she talks. The woman is devastated. You can tell how much she loved her daughter. And she's, the grandkids that she has now, the grandchildren who've lost their mom, the pain this poor woman's going through. Their response to you was blank you. That's what it was. Blank you. We're not even going to lift a finger for you. Listen now to Caroline Levitt. I think she hit the nail right on the head. Roll cut 16, Mike.
Today we have officially learned Democrat officials still refuse to accept the will of the American people. Maryland Democrat Senator Chris Van Hollen rushed to Dulles Airport this morning to fly to El Salvador, potentially using taxpayer dollars to demand the release of deported illegal alien MS-13 terrorist.
That's because Chris Van Hollen is a traitor. That's because the Democratic Party is now become, and they're showing this now. That's why I'm telling you, politically, this is now the kiss of death for them. This is what their TDS, their Trump derangement syndrome, has done. This is what the country is now watching, stunned, every night now in the nightly news. They have now become the party of murderers and rapists. They're literally now the party that advocates for MS-13 gangbangers and foreign terrorists. Like, you can't make this up. Now, another bombshell hit last night as the media is concocting another fake narrative, another hoax. Remember this? He's a family man. Oh, loves his wife, his kids. They're crying for him. He's a Maryland man. And he's been deported by Trump, disappeared, abducted. How dare he do this? Police documents have now come out. The guy's a wife beater. About 4 years ago, there was a domestic violence call, 911 call. He punched his wife in the face. He ripped off her shirt. There were scratches all over her body. He so terrorized her that she had to get a restraining order put on him. Mr. Family Man, the father of the year. Roll cut 16B, Mike.
Just this morning, it was revealed through Maryland court documents that Abrego Garcia's wife petitioned for an order of protection against him for 2 instances of domestic violence in May of 2021. And here is the order right here.
And then she reads the order. Now remember, that's his wife. That's what his wife is saying about him. When the police came and, her face was punched in. Roll cut 16C, Mike.
On May 4th of 2021, he punched and scratched his wife, ripped off her shirt, and grabbed and bruised her. This is from a court in Maryland.
2 courts said he was a member of MS-13. Members of MS-13 say he was a member of MS-13. When they arrested members of MS-13, he was with them. He was found with drugs on him. They were involved in the trafficking of women and children. This man is a terrorist. He's a gangbanger. And he's a wife beater. And this is who the Democrats are now defending? 850 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. Okay, 10 minutes, in just exactly 10 minutes. At 9 o'clock, Alan Dershowitz will be on for an exclusive Newsmaker interview. You don't want to miss it. But first, Bob in Plymouth. Bob, thanks for holding and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. Thanks for taking my call.
My pleasure, Bob.
Couple of things. The senator that went to El Salvador.
Yes, Chris Van Hollen, Senator right. Chris Van Hollen.
Well, you know what was worse than that? When John Kerry went to Vietnam, and nothing was done to him either. But that's what came to mind when you were telling me that story, you know.
Yeah, Bob, and I got to tell you, I mean, this is what I find it's just sickening. It's sick. I mean, it just turns your stomach. You're going to go and argue for this guy who, you know, as Sandy rightly said to me in our pre-show meeting, she's completely right. Look, let's leave the MS-13 off the table, okay? Let's leave the human trafficking off the table. Let's leave the wife beating off the table. Let's leave it all off the table. He's an illegal alien. Period. Full stop. We don't even have to deport him back to his home country of El Salvador. We can deport him, literally, we can deport him anywhere around the world. Like, for example, really, we could say, look, you came in through Mexico? Well, we're just going to dump you off right, at the Mexican border. Bye. You figure out how you get back to El Salvador. We don't have to even fly him back to El Salvador. So once you come into our country illegally, we have the right to deport you anywhere we want. So he goes to El Salvador and pleads for him. For him. And think about what they're saying. They're saying is, no, we want to bring this terrorist back. No, we want to bring this criminal, an MS-13 gangbanger, this human trafficker, this foreign terrorist, this wife beater. No, this illegal. We want to bring him back. So they don't want to deport him, Bob. They want to bring him back in. And I think, Bob, this is why this is such an important issue. The Democrats now have revealed their cards again. What they're really saying, and they're pretty much saying it now by saying every illegal alien must be given so-called due process. Well, as Stephen Miller, Trump's deputy chief of staff, I thought brilliantly put it, there are 20 plus million illegals in the United States. If every single one has to be given so-called due process, you know how long it's going to take to deport all of them? Literally centuries. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. So they're just trying now to completely slow down Trump, effectively paralyze Trump, make it almost impossible to deport anybody because they want to win the election in 2028 and they want to reopen the border. They're just going to pick up where they left off. And they want as many illegals in this country because they're going to give them amnesty and they're going to give them all the right to vote. That's why Van Hollen is crawling and begging in Venezuela to get this gangbanger back. Because this is part of their strategy. I mean, they're not stupid people. I mean, they're not. They're evil, but they're not stupid. Why would you go out of your way to advocate and defend a terrorist, a gangbanger, and just a horrible human being, a criminal? Because they're telling the illegals here and the illegals around the world, wink, wink, we'll be back in 3.5 years. And when we do, we're going to really open the floodgates this time. And we're going to make sure that no president can ever deport illegals again, because now every illegal, according to them, has so-called due process. So it'll take forever to deport one. Never mind 1 million, never mind 20 million. Bob, final word to you.
This guy, this senator, when is he up for re-election? If he ever got re-elected in Maryland, the people are crazy.
Oh, I agree. I mean, think about it. You got a dead mother, a law-abiding, good, decent dead mother with 5 children, and he didn't care for her at all, never spoke about her once, never did anything, but he goes out of his way for this gangbanger? That's who you want as your senator? You're right, Bob. They're sick in the head. They vote for him again, then they truly are crazy. Bob, thank you for that call. Anthony in Rhode Island. Thanks for holding, Anthony, and welcome.
Jeff, thanks for taking my call. I have to disagree with you, and it's not why I called, but when you said when they're reelected. No, they're not going to be reelected, Jeff. And that's what you have to talk. You have to talk. No, they're committing suicide. And the reason why they can't help themselves is because they got TDS. That's their problem. So they can't see through the forest. They just have to keep doing what they're doing, even though the people voted for President Trump to do what he is doing. So there's no re-electing them.
Oh, I agree. No, Anthony, no, I agree. No, what I meant by that, and maybe I misspoke, and forgive me if I did, in their minds, see, according to their thinking, they're saying when we're re-elected, according to them, hey, we're going to reopen the borders again. Wink, wink. So that's the signal they're trying to send. But I completely agree with you. This stunt, oh my God, is it blowing up in their face? The country can't believe it. Moderates can't believe it. Centrists can't believe it. Even many moderate Democrats, center-left Democrats can't believe it. You're going out of your way to defend this guy? This guy's now become your new Rosa Parks? He's your Martin Luther King? He's your hero? He's your martyr? This monster, this criminal, and now it turns out this wife beater. The country's looking on in utter shock and disbelief. So I agree, Anthony. I think politically, this is destroying the Democratic Party. You're right. This is TDS on steroids. But please, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead, Anthony.
No, Jeff. What I wanted to really talk about is bravo to the El Salvador president. He's another President Trump, and he's telling this senator, go pound sand. And if they think they're going to go to El Salvador like Spartacus himself, he should just say, come with me, let me show you, and then lock them all up and say, you think you're in America? No, you're not in America. You're in El Salvador. We'll lock you up. So if they think they're going to go there and cause chaos, I think they got another thing coming.
Anthony, if I'm getting too personal, please tell me, are you surprised at the lengths now the Democrats are willing to go in order to make this guy, Abrego Garcia, into a martyr, into a Democrat hero, into a victim of Trump? Like, this is the hill now they're willing to die on? Are you shocked? I'm just curious.
Nothing that they do you can be shocked about, because it's just they just continue to just go off that slope. They just keep falling and falling and falling, and they just can't help themselves. And Pam Bondi, when she was in that White House with the El Salvador president, and President Trump called on her to talk about this illegal, I don't know, the way she came off, and President Trump had to reassure her, hey, you're doing a great job. Thank you, President. I don't know. I just got that sense that she's just very timid. And hopefully she's going to show her true cards with what this woman has done. So hopefully she's going to really step up to the plate and show herself. Yeah,
I agree. Look, Anthony, I want Pam Bondi to succeed, because if she succeeds, I'm telling you, we succeed. The country succeeds. Leticia James will go to jail. Criminal illegal aliens will all be deported. Criminal Democrats will go to prison. The deep state's going to be thoroughly exposed and held accountable. We're going to undo so much of the damage of Obama and Biden. So believe me, Anthony, I want her to succeed. But I agree with you. There's something about her that's tentative, a tad insecure, a little uncertain of herself. Now, I don't know if it's because she's surrounded by all these lawyers at DOJ who are undercutting her or undermining her or giving her conflicting advice, because they do that. The bureaucracy tries to swallow you up. And maybe she's having a hard time finding her footing. But she's got to grab the bull by the horns in the cabinet. And we've got to go after. If we don't put these people in jail, they're going to be back. They're going to be back. It's like dealing with the devil. When you have the chance to put the devil away, you put that devil away, because that mistake could haunt you. Anthony, thank you very much for that call. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, so we're just dialing into Alan Dershowitz for his appearance now on our show. As you know, big story. Trump now is taking on Harvard University dead on. He's taking them on dead on, saying that they are not going to get $2.26 billion in funding. He may even end up freezing $9 billion in federal funds to Harvard because they refuse to effectively take decisive steps to weed out anti-Semitism, Jew hatred on campus, whether it be in the classroom, whether it be on campus itself. And so many at Harvard are now fighting back, saying that this is an attack on academic freedom, an attack on freedom of speech. And so we've just got connection now with Professor Alan Dershowitz. So joining me now is Professor Alan Dershowitz. He is Professor Emeritus at Harvard and best-selling author. Alan, it is great to have you on the Kuhner Report. I've got to ask you, as a Professor Emeritus at Harvard, how do you feel now about President Trump freezing over $2 billion in federal funds, threatening to freeze $9 billion in taxpayer funds, and maybe even now revoking Harvard's tax-exempt status? Agree, disagree?
I would ask all the listeners to go back to a time when I was in college in the 1950s when colleges were forced to integrate in Alabama and Mississippi, and masked Klansmen would be preventing black students from going to class. Teachers would be teaching white supremacy in class, and the Justice Department was threatening these universities. Would anybody out there be opposed to the federal government cutting off funding to racist Southern schools that were not protecting black students and not protecting against the abuse of classes by teachers? Now the shoe's on the other foot, and the people being protected are Jews and Christians and Zionists and conservatives. So in principle, you can't make the argument that the federal government has no proper role to play in preventing harassment of black students, Jewish students. You can't say it's different because back in the 50s it was black students that were being protected. Today it's Jewish students that are being protected. So you have to think of this in context. Has the Trump administration gone too far? Of course, they shouldn't be cutting off aid to research projects, but they should be cutting off aid to groups that call themselves human rights groups at Harvard Law School, and that are completely biased. They should be cutting off aid to departments that foment anti-Semitism. They should be cutting off aid to colleges that refuse to discipline masked students who are preventing Jewish students from coming to class. This is a far more nuanced issue, and many of the same people who are leading the campaign against the Trump administration would be joining the government if they were fighting against racism against black people, or if they were fighting against homophobia, or if they were fighting against discrimination against women. You cannot have a double standard for Jews and for everybody else. And that's why this is a nuanced issue. And I'm hoping that Harvard will settle this case, because some of the things the government is asking for are absolutely correct. Some of the things are absolutely wrong, and some of the things are subject to negotiation. This is not a black and white issue.
I agree with you. I completely agree with you. Let me ask you this, Professor Dershowitz. What do you say, just to play devil's advocate? This, you know the argument that the administration's making, that many professors and students at Harvard are making, that Trump is a bully, that Trump is trying to control Harvard, that he is violating the free speech rights of these pro-Palestinian students, of these anti-Israel, in many cases anti-Semitic professors, and that you, Alan Dershowitz, are wrong, that Harvard is a private institution, and if they want to allow Palestinians, or if they want to allow pro-Hamas supporters, or if they want to talk, spread Jew hatred, or go on against Israel and vilify the state of Israel, that is their First Amendment right. What say you?
I would what I would argue is that none of these people who are making that argument would be making the argument if these were Klansmen who were wearing hoods and were harassing black students. These are phony arguments. They are not principled arguments. Unless you're prepared to say that a private university can encourage black hatred, gay hatred, then you cannot say that a private university is entitled to encourage Jew hatred. You have to have a single standard. That's all I'm asking for. I know some of these professors who are bringing these lawsuits. They are virulently anti-Israel and anti-Semitic, and they would be jumping up and down for joy if the federal government were cutting off funding for anti-gay or anti-transphobic or you name it, anti-female or anti-black attitudes. So you need a single standard. And until we get the single standard, I'm not going to be on the side of these phonies who are actually in favor of anti-Israel, anti-Semitic. Take, for example, the case of this guy, Khalil. Would any of these people be supporting Khalil if he were a Nazi? Opposed to black people, if he were calling for the lynching of blacks, if he was circulating memos on the campus, if he were blocking black students from going to class, I refuse to participate in hypocrisy. And that's what we're seeing on college campuses today is hypocrisy. So I'm hoping that the university will sit down. They've already hired 2 lawyers who are very close to Trump. And I think that sends a message that they're ready to negotiate, and I hope they will negotiate, and they will admit that some of the things that the federal government is demanding are absolutely correct, and they would be on the side of the people demanding it if the victims of the discrimination on campus were black instead of Jews. So what we're seeing is racism by some of these professors who are insisting on academic freedom only for me, but not for thee.
Professor Dershowitz, I think maybe the final question I have for you is this. If you were not Professor Emeritus today, but you were a professor as you were, 20, 30 years ago, teaching on campus. 11 years ago. Would you feel threatened? Would you feel intimidated if you had to teach on the campus today?
I can tell you the facts. I was one of the most popular lecturers and teachers until 11 years ago. I have never once been asked back to speak about Israel. Since October 7th, I have offered to come to Harvard. I have offered to debate. They do not want to hear my pro-Israel point of view, even though it's a moderate two-state solution pro-Israel point of view. The students at Harvard are being denied my point of view and the point of view of millions of others who are different from the radical left anti-Israel perspective that we see among so many professors at Harvard. So, I wouldn't feel intimidated because I'd stand up and fight for my rights. That's who I am. But right now, somebody with my views are canceled at Harvard. We can't speak at Harvard. And that's a real problem. And that's today. That's not, 11 years ago. That's today. I have offered over and over again to come to Harvard and to debate anti-Israel speakers. They will not accept it. The one time that a student group asked me to come to Harvard, they had to move my speech off campus for fear of my life, that if I made a pro-Israel statement on the Harvard campus, I would be in danger of being beaten up. That's Harvard today. And unless it improves, things are going to go and get worse. And they're worse at Berkeley. And they're worse in other places in the United States. And so Harvard has proved that it is not capable of governing itself. And so just like the University of Mississippi was not capable of governing itself in the 1950s. And so federal intervention under various titles of the civil rights law are appropriate. They shouldn't overdo it. No research should be cut back that deals with science and cancer and everything else. But when you get a human rights group at Harvard Law School that only focuses on Israel and doesn't focus on much more serious human rights, when you get a professor at Yale who calls on a student, when the student speaks, he says, "Are you speaking with an Israeli accent?" And the student says, "Yes." and the professor says you cannot speak unless you're willing to admit you're a war criminal. Should we, the taxpayer, be funding that department? The Middle East Studies Department at Yale?
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not. No, you're dead on. You're dead on.
Yeah.
Look, if I can squeeze one more question out of you.
At Harvard Law School? Yeah.
Yeah, Professor Dershowitz, we got about a minute left, but I've got to ask you, in your view, what accounts for this explosion of Jew hatred and anti-Semitism? Harvard, Yale, all of these elite institutions. What do you think is the root cause?
Number one, it's DEI, diversity, inclusion, and equity and inclusion, which is a hotbed of anti-Semitism. Number two, it's these ethnic departments, Middle East studies, even Jewish studies, gay studies, women's studies. These are not true academic enterprises. These are political, partisan, ideological propaganda mills. And on October 8th, when 32 groups at Harvard blamed what happened on October 7th on Israel, much of it came from these departments, these bureaucracies, and until and unless these bureaucracies are rooted out, and we're going to see left-wing professors, hard left anti-American, anti-Christian groups dominate at schools like Harvard. And the problem is much deeper than just a few people blocking access to campuses. We're seeing a culture of hatred against Western democracy, against the United States, against Israel, and against Jews and against Christians. And that has to be rooted out. And, of course, the Trump administration, as most administrations, went too far. And that's why we need a negotiated settlement where some of the demands have to be met as a condition of federal funding.
We have been talking with Professor Alan Dershowitz, Professor Emeritus at Harvard University. Professor, as always, dynamite stuff, and you're always welcome back on the Kuhner Report. Thank you so much.
Thanks. I'm always happy to be on. Thank you.
Take care. 921 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, by the way, it's all on the table. You want to talk about Chris Van Hollen and how the left is now turning this guy, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, into a martyr. This MS-13 wife-beating, human trafficking terrorist. We can definitely talk about that. Leticia James, obviously, we've been talking about it for a good part of the morning. But we can also talk about what Alan Dershowitz was on. I didn't want to quibble with him, to be honest, because I thought his larger point was dead on. That the very same radical leftists, if this was being done against blacks or gays or other minorities, would be applauding Trump for freezing federal funding. I think on that he's 1,000% correct. No question. No question. But the one part that I would quibble with him on is when he said about, well, you should cut some funding, but not all of the funding, for cancer research or for medical purposes. Look, Harvard has a $53 billion endowment. Now think of that. $53 billion. And apparently, just Harvard, okay, I'm just talking about Harvard, they get $9 billion in taxpayer funds. $9 billion in federal funds. Now, my question to all of you is, why the hell is Harvard getting anything? I'm talking even a penny from the taxpayer. They've got a $53 billion endowment. They're loaded. They've got enough money to last them hundreds of years. So why do you need money from the federal government, i.e. from taxpayer money, federal funds? So I would cut off all federal funding completely, not just because it's awash in a sea of anti-Semitism and Jew hatred, which it is, not because Harvard is a racist institution, and that's not just an opinion, it's a fact. The Supreme Court ruled just a couple of years ago that they were openly, repeatedly, deliberately discriminating against Asians and Asian Americans in their admissions. Just like, by the way, they used to discriminate against Jews and against blacks 100 years ago in their admissions. So Harvard's always been, frankly, a racist institution. But, let that go. So, do I want to give a racist institution money? Absolutely not. But even if they weren't racist, you're sitting on $53 billion. You got one of the biggest endowments in the world. Tax-free. Remember, now Trump may remove the tax-exempt status. But as things stand right now, that's tax-exempt. That's tax-free. So I want you to think about the absurdity of this. An institution swimming in billions and billions and billions of dollars is asking the government, which is broke. They're asking us. We're broke. We have no money. So people that have money are asking people who don't have money, because we're running $2 trillion deficits every year, to continue to give them even more money. Does this make any sense to you? It doesn't make any sense to me. So I would financially cut, and it's not just Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Columbia, Cornell, I don't care. All of the elite institutions in our country. Not a single dime in taxpayer federal money. And let me just say one other thing. All of that taxpayer money, and it amounts to billions and billions and billions, paid for by, taxpayers. Most Americans do not have a college degree. Most Americans only have a high school diploma. So my point being is you have Americans who work hard for their money, who've never been to college or don't have a college degree. We have to essentially subsidize the wealthy, most privileged, educated members of our society? I don't think so. Absolutely not. To me, cut off all federal funding to Harvard and every elite university. Agree, disagree, your call's next. 9:31 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. All right, let me throw a super quick log on the fire, and then I want to go right back to the blazing phone lines. By the way, a line or two is open if you want to jump on. Now's the time to do it. 617-266-6868. The argument being made by the Democrats, the media, and even some libertarians and conservatives, some, not many, but some, that Trump has no business, and the Trump administration has no business, dictating content at a university. Yes, it's billions of dollars in federal funding. Yes, they tend to come with strings attached, but that Trump should not be telling them what they should be allowed or not allowed to say or do on campus. That this is a form of coercing speech. This is what they argue. And as I discussed with Professor Dershowitz, violating free speech. And that Trump now is trying to impose his view upon the faculty and students of Harvard. Do you agree or disagree? My position is very simple. Harvard, like Columbia, like all of these elite universities, have become a cesspool of anti-Semitism, Jew hatred, anti-Americanism, Marxism, communism, radical leftism. And if you're going to be taking people's money, then I'm sorry. I don't want to subsidize hate. I don't want to subsidize hate. And yeah, you have the right to express your viewpoints. You don't have the right to shut people down. You don't have the right to prevent people from going to class. You don't have the right to harass people, say Jewish students on campus. You don't have the right to threaten them or bully them or say you want to kill them or murder them. That's terrorism. That's criminal behavior. And that's unacceptable. Public institution, private institution, public university, private university. And let me just make one last final point. Harvard, in their argument with Trump now, in their battle with Trump, keeps insisting we're a private institution. You don't have the right to tell us what we can or can't say on campus. Okay, fine. Then don't take any taxpayer money. If you're private, then be fully private. But no, you want to have your cake and eat it too. You want the $9 billion to keep coming in, even though you've got a $50 billion plus endowment, to show you how greedy these people are. And by the way, these are the ones going on about, inequity and injustice and unfairness and the 99% versus the 1% as they get richer and richer and fatter and fatter and thicker. Okay? But let that go. If you're going to take taxpayer money, then you're no longer fully private. So I'm sorry, but I don't want my taxpayer dollars to be subsidizing Jew hatred, anti-Semitism, and frankly, the indoctrination of students to hate Western culture, Western civilization, America, our Constitution, our heritage, and everything this good, decent country stands for. Now, you want to be a radical Marxist institution? Do it on your time and your dime. But you're not going to get my money, and you shouldn't get my money. Agree, or any taxpayer money. Agree, disagree. Frank in Gloucester. Thanks for holding, Frank, and welcome.
I got a question for you. I'm wondering, what's to stop a Democratic president from sending you to El Salvador? After all, you weren't born in this country. What's to stop him from doing it?
Are you
I'm waiting for an answer.
Are you serious or are you trolling?
Yes, of course I'm serious. No, I'm serious.
Okay, number one, I'm a citizen of this country. Number two, I can't, my God, this guy's dumb. I mean, this is shocking. Honestly, Frank, even by your standards, holy mackerel. Number two, I came into this country legally. I got a student visa. Then I got a work visa. Then I got a green card. Then I became a naturalized citizen. I was properly vetted. I obeyed the laws of this country. I didn't break the laws of this country to get in. So, just because you deport a criminal illegal alien doesn't mean all of a sudden you're going to start deporting American citizens. What American citizen, really, dingbat, what American citizen has Trump deported to El Salvador? Can you name me one? Name me just one. One American citizen that he has deported to El Salvador. One. Just name me one. Genius.
Can I answer your question?
Don't ask me a question. Answer my question.
No.
I answered your question. Listen to me.
Okay.
I answered your question. You answer mine. Name me one American citizen that he has deported to El Salvador. One.
Okay. All right. Oops, we made a mistake. And in the meantime, you're in El Salvador.
Okay, so you're not going to... Right. So you're not answering my question. Now, because you don't have an answer, because you're lying, like you liberals always do. Now, number two, genius. Tell me, this guy Abrego Garcia that you're bleeding for, tell me, are you telling me that we don't have the right to deport a criminal illegal alien back to his home country? Is that what you're telling me now, Frank?
No, I'm telling you that a Democratic president can deport you and shave your head down in El Salvador. And all they have to do is say, oops, we made a mistake.
Well, no. He deported a criminal illegal alien who's a member of MS-13, who doesn't belong in this country, who will be deported no matter what. He's not a citizen of this country. Can you get your mind through that? Now, if a Democratic president did that to me, that would be a high crime and misdemeanor. Literally, that would lead to the impeachment of this president, of this Democrat president. So I don't know what you're talking about. Criminal illegal aliens are not entitled to the same rights and protections as legal immigrants, legal residents, and citizens of the United States. A criminal illegal alien, especially one who is part of a designated terrorist organization, as is MS-13, by law can be deported immediately. So Trump is abiding by the law. He's doing what's right. He's doing what he campaigned on. And if you can't comprehend the fundamental difference between deporting a criminal illegal alien who is not supposed to be in America and who happens to also be a terrorist, with lawfully deporting, in your view, an American citizen, then I'm sorry. You are so colossally stupid. You can't be helped. We're talking negative IQ. Did that penetrate that thick skull of yours, Frank?
Jeff, the president can say all them things. You're a terrorist. You belong to MS-13. And then he can say, oops, we made a mistake. Just like he did for that guy.
God.
They said I made a mistake.
No, he's an illegal alien. No one denies that. No one denies that. 2 courts and 2 judges have said he's a member of MS-13. MS-13 have said he's a member of MS-13. So I don't know. And MS-13 is designated as a foreign terrorist organization. You see, what you don't understand, because you don't read a newspaper, because that's how stupid you are, is that the administrative error that you're talking about, this quote-unquote, oops, it was a mistake, was that he shouldn't have been on the first 2 plane loads. They were shipping out plane loads of MS-13 and Tren de Aragua. He wasn't scheduled to be on the first 2 plane loads. But he was always going to be deported because he's a criminal illegal alien. That's why criminal illegals are going to be deported. By law, they must be deported. He's an illegal alien who we just found out, by the way, committed another crime. He beat his wife. In fact, he beat his wife multiple times. She filed restraining orders on him. She called the police on him. Duh. Do you explain it now? Can you understand it now, Frank? Hello? Yeah? Sinking in?
Jeff. Yeah, Jeff. Don't call me stupid because I never insulted you. So don't call me stupid. That's what you do when you lost the argument.
No.
You start insulting.
No.
That's what you do.
No.
You start insulting.
You insult me all the time. You know that. That's number 1. And 2, I'm sorry, but stupid is as stupid does and stupid speaks. So you're trying to claim this ridiculous scenario, and you're kind of threatening me. You're hinting at it, that I should be deported. That's what you're really trying to say. Because I'm a naturalized American, that I should be deported. And honestly, you should be ashamed of yourself. Now, look, hey, buddy, it's your life. You want to defend a criminal illegal alien and a terrorist, a trafficker, a human trafficker, a wife beater? Go ahead. I don't know what to tell you. So I guess the beating you guys got the last time wasn't enough? Keep talking, baby. 950 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. 617-266-6868. I'm busting a gut here. We've been talking off air. I got to say, Sandy and Mike are very, very funny. When they want to be, they're very, very funny. So I said to Sandy and Mike, I go, no, really, nobody can be that dumb. I go, honestly, is he a troll? And no, really, is he just trying to get a rise out of me and the audience? Or is Frank and Gloucester, is he really that stupid? And Sandy says, did you listen to Biden's speech a couple nights ago? That's a yellow dog Democrat. That's how they are. And then, and Sandy made a really good point. She goes, Jeff, they so blindly follow the Democratic Party line that if you barbecued a baby on Boston Common in Public Square and the Democrats said, yeah, it's fine, go ahead, they'd be like, oh, okay, barbecued the baby. Okay. Many of you are saying that he's, now that the joke many of you are saying is, instead of dumber than a box of rocks, Frank is dumber than Bill in Sudbury. I agree. I thought Bill was the dumbest. No, this guy. This guy even puts Bill in Sudbury to shame. All right. Mike's in my ear. Mirror, mirror on the wall. Who's the dumbest liberal of them all? Frank. Frank. Okay. New York Post broke the story. Just very quick, because the lines are, I want to get to some of the callers, but New York Post broke the story straight from the Department of Justice, Department of Homeland Security, and police records. So Maryland police records, DHS records, and DOJ documents. So this guy, Abrego Garcia, the one that everybody is, all these left-wingers are falling over themselves. He was arrested in the company of known MS-13 gang members carrying marijuana and wads of cash. Apparently, multiple MS-13 gangbangers and a police informant who had penetrated MS-13 said that he's an active, or at the time, whatever, when the arrest was made, was an active MS-13 member with the rank within MS-13, and I don't know what this means exactly, but Chequeo, Chequeo, Chequui or Chequeo. Anyway, I don't know what Chequeo, what the rank is, but he had some kind of a rank. And his street name, his MS-13 street name was Chele. I think it's pronounced Chele, Chele. So, and then there's all this stuff now. Multiple times he beat up his wife. Multiple times. The cops had to be called, multiple restraining orders. He punched her, he scratched her, he beat her up, he tore off her shirt. Now, if this is the guy that the media and the Democrats are holding up as the poster child of President Trump wrongfully deporting someone, I'm telling you, he's doing an amazing job. Just keep deporting. Don't stop deporting, baby. Janine in North Reading. Thanks for holding, Janine, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. Thanks
Hi.
for taking my call.
My pleasure, Janine.
Great show as always.
Thank you.
Just a quick point, actually, speaking to the Harvard situation. We know they're starving to death. Not only do they have an incredibly massive endowment and don't need our federal dollars, but they use those federal dollars. People forget they're very integral in policy setting, leftist policy setting. They're an extremely partisan group that creates policy that harms families and most of us in America who would like to have our conservative family values respected.
Oh, you're dead on. Janine, honestly, you're absolutely dead on. Janine, do you think Trump is going to break Harvard? Do you think he's going to force them to make the necessary changes? Or do you think Harvard's going to basically walk away from $9 billion and maybe even their tax-exempt status? What do you think?
Harvard's a behemoth, and they have their hands in absolutely everything, everywhere. I don't like to vote against Trump, but this is a real beast he's up against.
You know, I got to say, how many politicians now are coming up to bat for Harvard? You're right. And it's not just Democrats, it's Republicans. How many in the media are batting for Harvard? You're right. They got their finger in every pie. Absolutely every pie. And, and to me, the tax exempt status, that I think they can survive the $9 billion, but they're so greedy. They don't want to lose that tax exempt status. Trump takes away that tax-exempt status, that could be his ace in the hole. But I agree with you, Janine. Harvard is big. Harvard is powerful. And they're going to give Trump a real fight on his hands. Janine, excellent point. Thank you so much for calling in. Where did the time go? Where did the time go? The callers, you are outstanding as usual. I will be on tomorrow. I know it's Good Friday, but I will be on. And we'll have a full show for you. Anyway, bye-bye.